The August 12th, 2021 regular board meeting of the Pleasanton Unified School District. If you'll all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Being that this is the first official meeting of the brand new school year, just a quick reminder for folks, due to the continuing pandemic, we are still conducting our meetings virtually, although we are here in person. Public comment is being done via submission over on our website, which you can find that at pleasantonusd.net. We do have one board member joining us virtually tonight. Welcome, Trustee Vice President Miller. Tonight we have, a couple of things to report out from closed session, but before I do that, I did want to make some introductions for those of you joining us as new parents in our district with elementary students and TK kids. Welcome to Pleasanton Unified. So my name is Joan Larson. I'm serving as the board president this year. To my right is our superintendent, Dr. David Hagelin. Again, Trustee Mark Miller is joining us via Zoom. To my left here is Trustee Steve Maher, Trustee Kelly Makashi, and Trustee Mary Jo Carrion. Down in the audience this time, we have Patrick Gannon, who is our coordinator of community engagement and communication. We have our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Manshikal Oslami. We have Julio Hernandez, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Mr. Ed Dialazo, our Assistant Superintendent of Student Support Services. I never get that right. And our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Janelle Woodward of Teaching and Learning. So those are the folks that meet regularly twice a month. We have moved our meetings, our open session meetings, to 6 p.m. now. That's a change from past practice, just so that everybody can get us on your calendar. So from now on, we will be meeting in open session starting at 6 p.m. on our regularly scheduled board meetings. All right, we have some things to report out of closed session this evening. So first, I will share that in closed session, item 2C1, the board voted 5-0, moved by Trustee Carrion and seconded by Trustee Makashi, to approve a compromise and release agreement for internal case number SED 101.21.22 for the amount not to exceed $28,200. And then we have some great things to report out on the personnel front. We did ratify some appointments that were made in the summer session, which is what we do every year when the board is not meeting on a regular basis. So I'd like to read those off and welcome these folks who have been hard at work already this week. So first off is Lydia Rice, Vice Principal at Moore Elementary School. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I just want to thank the board and the cabinet for this wonderful opportunity. I'm very excited to join the Moore family and look forward to a great year.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you.
Next is Karen Cobb, Vice Principal at Pleasanton Middle School.
Hi, excuse the lack of video. I wanted to thank you all again for the opportunity to continue my career here in Pleasanton, especially in administration at the site that I've been working so hard at, putting intervention systems in place. I'm super excited that our district's putting equity in the forefront and hope to continue working for some of these marginalized families in this new role. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Great. And number 3 on my list of famous, wonderful people is Sohail Ahmed, Program Supervisor in Special Education.
Hi, my name is Sohail Ahmed. I was program specialist for the past 2 years at Pleasanton, and now I'm program supervisor, so I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to work for Pleasanton in this role. Some differences, but also being able to work with familiar faces at the same time. So thank you.
Congratulations. Next, we have Robin Vranish, Program Supervisor in Special Education. Robin, are you with us this evening? Well, we'll give you a round of applause. Welcome. And then next is Andrea Withers, Vice Principal at Pleasanton Valley, typo, at Valley View Elementary School. Andrea. Nope. Well, welcome, everybody at Valley View. Tell Andrea we're happy to have her. Then we have Beth Lauterbach, Vice Principal at Hearst Elementary School. No Beth? Okay. Beth's been a teacher in our district for a long time. Congratulations. Brendan Nelson, Vice Principal at Amador Valley High School. Welcome. And Siobhan McCord, Administrative Assistant in Human Resources. Siobhan, are you with us tonight? Nope. Okay, congratulations. Those were the appointments that the superintendent made, and we have ratified. We'll be ratifying tonight. And then in closed session tonight, we also made 2 appointments unanimously. These are both program supervisors in special education, and the first is Kelly Mackey.
Hello. I wanted to say thank you to the board for the opportunity to continue to serve our special education students in the administrative capacity. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And last but not least, we have Christy Kropp, Program Supervisor. Hi, Christy.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity to continue my educational journey in Pleasanton Unified School District. I've been here for the last 2.5 years serving as your behavior specialist, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with families and teams to support the special education department.
Great. One of the things I did want to mention it was really nice to see many of our current employees be in a position to be the #1 candidate out of the interview process. So good job, everybody. I'm really happy to see the promotions of our current staff. That was great. And welcome to those of you who are new to our district as well. All right. Then we have the agenda this evening. I haven't heard of anything to be moved. I'm not talking about, I did both special ed. Did they join us? No. I did read that. All right, stay with me. All right, I did them out of order because I wanted to save the appointments for last. All right, so is there anything anyone would like to change on the agenda? Or if not, I'll seek a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
All right. Trustee Miller, I'll go to you first. Trustee Carrion?
Aye.
Makashi?
Aye.
Maher? Aye. Larson, aye. All right, the agenda is approved. I don't believe we have any recognitions or introductions tonight. Not tonight. And then we will hear from our associations. And first up, we have Sam Weaver of the Association of Pleasanton Teachers.
Good evening, President Larson, members of the board, Dr. Haglund, members of the cabinet, and our community. I am Sam Weaver, Vice President of the Association of Pleasanton Teachers, and we believe that Pleasanton students deserve the best. We believe firmly in the success of all of our students, and they deserve the best supports. The social emotional well-being of our students is a priority, which means having mental health providers at all levels with caseloads that allow them to equitably support all students. Our schools must be fully staffed by attracting and retaining high-quality educators. PUSD needs to invest in all students and our highly qualified educators and not just management's budget. APT educators have started the school year with anxiety, excitement, and some with heavy hearts. This school year will require extensive and distinct one-time preparation related to the advancement of students to the next grade. This includes the unique identification of students, the need for supplemental instruction support, learning recovery support, and social emotional support for identified students. Pleasanton students deserve the best, and our educators deserve acknowledgement for providing the high level of education PUSD prides itself on. That acknowledgement needs to come with more than just words of appreciation and reminders to take care of ourselves, but with actions that provide a fair return for the work that we have done and continue to do. I had a teacher is a common refrain among people entering the field of education. Someone who believed in a student, who inspired a student, who changed that student's life. My parents moved to Pleasanton in 1988 because of the schools. I was a student in PUSD for 12 years. I wanted to work here because of the teachers, the members of APT. Their passion for their students and their subjects opened my eyes to a career I never considered. It wasn't some policy implemented or some regulation debated. It was teaching that reflected respect for our profession. We are seeking an honest and respectful partnership with district management in supporting our students. Pleasanton students deserve the best. Pleasanton educators are the best. Let's make sure we keep them. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And tonight's CSEA President Derek Pasaros is not speaking. He's throwing his sentiments behind Mr. Weaver's comments. All right, do we have public comment from the community? Mr. Gannon.
We do, President Larson, although I'm not sure if they are with us this evening, but if you are, feel free to raise your hand and then we'll give you speaking privileges. We have 2 public comments, and we'll start with Oscar at Actus. Oscar Actus, if you're with us, please raise your hand. All right, next we'll go to John Bauer. Oh. All right. John Bauer, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not used to this version of Zoom. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. So there's no way in, I guess, 2 minutes to capture the enormity and seriousness of the topic. The decisions this board will soon make about police on campus will have a lifelong impact for those students who have a direct encounter with PPD. The PPD SROs respond to over 1,000 calls for service annually. Tonight, I'd like to share one recent encounter a student had with PPD. Control and compliance. I've sent each of you a photo earlier this week. It is a still shot from a video which shows a special needs student being dragged over 100 feet by 3 Pleasanton police officers and thrown into the backseat of a patrol car. I was going to play some audio for you from the video, but since this video was taken from some distance away, it would not capture the horrific totality of this event. The same photo was sent to the city council. They asked for an explanation. Chief Swing reported he had reviewed the body cam video and determined that the situation was handled appropriately and with compassion. My reaction was, what? You've got to be kidding. What the video taken by the civilian shows is a youth first tackled by PUSD staff, then assisted by PPD, rolling the youth on his stomach, pulling both hands behind his back. PPD uprighted the youth and dragged him, hands behind his back, which appeared that he had been placed in handcuffs or wire ties, to the patrol car. The video was sent to medical professionals and associates who specialize in autism. They were horrified by what they saw and stated that this encounter with the Pleasanton police will leave emotional scars, which his child will carry with him for the remainder of his life. Control and compliance. It is what law enforcement is trained to achieve in every encounter they have with police. Please think about that when you vote for or against having cops on PUSD campuses. Do you want alumni of PUSD to carry lifelong emotional scars?
Thank you, Mr. Bauer.
All right, and just a last call. We have one phone caller joining in, so we're not sure who that is. If you are either Osgore or if you're Osgore, I guess you can dial *9 to raise your hand, and we'll call on you. Otherwise, we will move right along. All right.
So we did not, I'm sorry, I couldn't, you were very soft, Patrick.
Sorry. We are okay to move forward.
All right, thank you very much. All right, that concludes the public comment tonight for items not on our agenda. We'll now move on to item 9, which is our high school representative report. We don't have one this evening. All right. Superintendent Hagelin, your report.
Thank you, President Larson. I've spent the better part of these past 2 days walking campuses, directing traffic, and just taking time to talk with students and staff as they resumed school in the manner in which they're most familiar, in person, with high levels of engagement, and within the context of relationships. It truly was a joy to watch. It is clear that everyone is back in their element, and I certainly feel that way too. Members of our board and the cabinet have also been out visiting sites and without exception have observed high levels of engagement and excitement to be back on campus from both students and staff. I want to extend our appreciation to every member of the PUSD community for helping us make day one of the 21-22 school year so special for each of our students. We made adjustments for day two, and we will continue to learn and to grow. As one student said in an elementary school classroom, this is the best day ever. So here's to more best days as we move forward in the 21-22 school year. Amidst the first day of excitement, the director of the California Department of Public Health issued an order directing all school personnel to verify full COVID-19 vaccination status or participate in COVID-19 testing at least once per week. The Public Health Department assures us that vaccinations are the best way to protect ourselves and one another, as well as to secure a safe learning environment for the students we serve and a safe working environment for our employees. This health order, which went into effect today, applies to all employees, contractors, and service providers who are on school campuses, as well as school volunteers. School districts, like Pleasanton, have until October 15th to be in full compliance. This statewide effort aligns with our ongoing efforts to secure opportunities for employees and eligible students to get vaccinated. Thank you to the many employees who have already taken advantage of the vaccination clinics hosted by PUSD in partnership with the Alameda County Public Health Department and the City of Pleasanton. We will be sharing more information with our employees and the community as we move forward to implement this order. We were pleased to approve a tentative agreement last month with our Classified Employees Association that addresses increases in salaries as well as the contribution towards health care. This helps PUSD recruit and retain high-quality employees. As we close the books for 2021 and complete the 45-day budget revise process this evening, we are hopeful to re-engage with the Association of Pleasanton Teachers and bring negotiations to a positive resolution. We remain committed to ongoing collaboration with our employee unions as we balance the need to provide for our employees while maintaining sound fiscal stewardship to the benefit of both our current and future students, who we agree deserve the very best. That's my report.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is our items on consent. These are generally routine items that are passed with a one vote unless either a community member wishes to comment or a board member wishes to question or comment on a particular item. I do need to pull item number J myself to address ACOE contracts. Is there any other item that board members wish to pull
I
from?
wanted to pull item G.
G.
I just have a question. So.
All right, anyone else? All right, I would seek a motion for approval of the consent agenda without G or J.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda without G or J.
I will second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the items on the consent agenda with the exception of items G and J. Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Carry on.
Aye.
Makashi?
Aye.
Maher? Larson? Aye. Thank you. All right, Trustee Makashi on item G.
Sure. This is really more for the benefit of the public. Ahmad, probably this is directed towards you. Could you just give a brief clarification or explanation of how, with the proposed fee for STEAM preschool, will help that program be more solvent?
Sure. We looked at STEAM's current, fiscal projections and increasing those rates. And so currently, in the current fiscal year, with the rates that we have, by increasing those rates, we'll, decrease our deficit spending, and especially by increasing the number of students, then that gap can be closed and bring the STEAM back into a positive territory. So I think the combination of increasing the rates, being competitive to the market, and increasing the students will quickly bring that program back to a positive rate, and that combination is going to be real critical.
Just to clarify, based upon the numbers and analysis with the increased fee, will the program be self-running throughout the school year, or will it need to depend on other funds through Fund 63?
So at the current enrollment, it will need a kind of that overall balancing between, the three funds that are in there. It's Kids Club, STEAM, and Horizon. And so Kids Club has been, returning back to more of a normal state with school in session, and that has been the anchor of that program, bringing in most of the revenue and balancing that budget. So that will continue being the case as in previous years, but increasing the fees for STEAM and also working to have greater number of students in the program can also bring that program, that particular program within the Fund 63 into kind of more of a balanced financial status.
Okay, thank you.
Do you wish to make a motion to approve the item?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve item G.
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve item G, the proposed fee increase for STEAM preschool. Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Carry on.
Aye.
Makashi?
Aye.
Maher? Aye. Larson? Aye. Thank you. I'm pulling item J, which is the ratification of contracts for June and July, simply because as part of conflict of interest rules and an abundance of clarity or transparency, sorry. So there are a number of MOUs on the ratification list that are with the Alameda County Office of Ed, which is my employer. They do not have any bearing on the job that I do in district advisory services. They are purely more educational and business related. So I do not believe there's anything other for me to do other than to note my employment. And so with that, I'll move approval of item J.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve to ratify the contracts for June and July. Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Carry on.
Aye.
Makashi?
Aye.
Maher? Aye. Larson? Aye. All right, thank you. That is it for the consent calendar. We now move on to items for report, discussion, and possible action. The first item up is discussion, review, and possible action on the 45-day budget revision for the 21-22 adopted budget. Mr. Shikul-Islami.
Great, thank you. Good evening. I'm going to share my screen and I will start the presentation. So for tonight's presentation, we'll review the enacted state budget, which the governor signed back in late June, and we'll review some of the details within that and the 45-day budget revisions that we have made and how that impacts our multi-year budget and the next steps we're working on. So the state's enacted budget has a great deal of additional information and details that we are working through and will be working through in the months to come. One of the big steps the state took was to end all deferrals for 21-22. So the district will not need to do any type of borrowing for any type of fund gap. In addition, the trans that we did take out the last fiscal year will be able to fully repay it at the end of its term in December. The other big decision that was included in this budget is the beginning of universal transitional kindergarten to be a full year for students. And so beginning next school year, the eligibility will increase for 2 months. And right now the eligibility for students that are 4 years old is through December, and then that will get expanded through January. And so that will continue until it becomes a full year of 4-year-olds. And so that transition, there are some dollars associated with that transition plan, and that includes some planning allocation dollars that are restricted. And it will also require a plan for the district to prepare, and then that needs to go to the state by the end of this fiscal year. There will be some competitive professional development grants, as well as a facility grant program, which is not enough to cover all the facility needs in the state, and it is priority based. And so staff will be really looking at this in detail. It'll have impacts in our demographic reports and our facility planning. And so this is going to be a big undertaking for all school districts in the state of California. The next item that we were pleased was included was additional funding to special education. Our school district is part of a SELPA that is at the base rate, and so we are going to see that increase from around, I believe, 650 to about that 715. So that is going to be an annual increase of about 910,000, and will reduce our unrestricted contribution into the special ed program by that amount. There's also going to be some ongoing special education early intervention preschool grant, and that is going to be also welcomed. In addition to that, the state has now allocated dedicated dollars to help special ed programs from the impacts of the pandemic, and that includes $100 million towards dispute resolution and about $450 million towards learning recovery services. And so those dollars will be distributed through our local SELPA. The SELPA does have to have a plan in place, and the distribution of the funding is based on per pupil. So we estimate approximately $1 million from that. We have not yet included those dollars in the budget, as we're waiting for the SELPA to develop the plans and looking at when those funds will come. Those funds have a longer timeline and through 2023, so that is also welcome. There'll also be a small amount of money through the federal dollars that will also be coming to the special education program. Another program that we'll be seeing an increase is the career technical, and so that is almost a doubling of their funds, and we don't have the details of that yet, so our application was approved, and so hopefully we'll get some details and see those funds start this year. Another big block of one-time restricted dollars is the Educator Investment Grant and Opportunities. And there's a whole host of both block grants and other type of grant programs through the Teacher Residency Program, National Board Certification, and support for our classified employees through either the Summer Assistance Program and Teacher Credentialing. And so those are, I know that HR team will be looking at those in detail and bringing those dollars to our district. The other one was the independent study requirement, AB 130, and so that at the last board meeting, you heard a lot of details on that, and our virtual academy is up and running based on those requirements. Two other important programs was the child nutrition program, and so we have universal meal. And so right now, all students in the state of California, including those in PUSD, are provided 2 meals during the school day, and that's breakfast and lunch free of charge. And so the out year is still dependent on legislative apportionment, but we're hoping that that program will also continue. The state also has a 5-year grant towards the AG completion improvement, and that requires a plan to be submitted to the state by January as well. And those dollars are restricted to increase graduation for our students. The next pot of one-time restricted dollars that the state is allocating is called the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, and those funds are meant to help our elementary unduplicated students, and those are our low socioeconomic students, EL, homeless, and foster youth. And so that category of funding is estimated at around $817. We're still waiting for the details of this program as well, as it looks to be expanding after-school program and longer school days to help our students. There was state unemployment insurance relief. If you remember, back in February, March, we received a letter from the State Department indicating that they were going to be increasing the rate, which was set at 0.05 to 1.23. And so the state has now kind of provided a semi-relief by spreading that out over a 2-year period at a 0.5%. So a little bit of decrease in our budget planning for the current fiscal year, but then it goes back up next year because we were anticipating a lower rate. So there's a little bit of shifting of the dollars. We were hoping for additional pension relief, but that was not included in the enacted budget, and so we'll have to see if the state, with additional revenues or better than expected revenues, will provide that either in this year or in a future year. So that's a big one that we were hoping for but did not see. So to recap it, again, a lot of those are one-time dollars and one-time programs that we're going to start to include in the budget as they are received and as the details of the program become available. What we did include in the 45-day budget are revisions to increased revenue through the lottery dollars, which we learned we're getting additional dollars. So there's some restricted and unrestricted lottery dollars, and the special education dollars that have increased our base rate. And so together, that's about an ongoing increase of about $1.45 million. On the expenditure side, you're going to see the changes in the classified salary and in the benefits area. And the classified was the tentative agreement that we reached with our CSEA unit. Those costs are included in here, and that covers a 2-year period. It covers the retro for 2021 and the ongoing in 21-22. In addition, the reason there's negative adjustments in the benefits is that while there were salary-related benefit increases, there was then the reduction of the state unemployment insurance, which netted a reduction in benefit costs. So those were captured. So the net increase for the ongoing is in the out years, you'll see that will be a little bit adjusted. So there's a little bit of shifting of dollars there. So that we included those two in the budget. And so what you'll see in this slide over here is basically the change in 2021. Our reserve rates are at 6.28, and then you'll see some deficit spending in the out years, which will tighten up our reserve rates in those years. And so we still have work to do in terms of the unaudited actuals, and so these numbers are going to change, but I think it was critical for us to at least bring the 45-day budget with these key revisions, knowing that there's going to be significant changes at first interim when we capture, if they're the unaudited actuals, where we have the ending fund balance that will go in there. We'll know where the salaries are, who got hired. And so again, the budget is an ongoing, it's a living document really. And so that story will continue being told. So in terms of our work, the remaining, we are close to closing the books, and we'll be bringing that to the board on the 9th for approval. Those books then get audited, and then we'll bring the audited information back in January to the board. And so we continue to plan and implement our one-time funds, and this is it's a significant undertaking. We've been having weekly meetings with our teaching and learning team, our budget, and other departments as necessary to get those plans in place and get those dollars out. We still have to also plan for the ESSER III dollars, and that planning work will happen in the next month or so, and we'll bring a plan back for board action in October. And we're working on the salary schedule adjustments, as Dr. Hagelin discussed earlier. And then again, the first interim is December 9th. So a lot of work is occurring, and a lot of work will continue to occur around the budget and ensuring our fiscal stability.
Are there questions from the trustees? Mary Jo.
Thank you for your hard work. I can't even imagine how much work that is, so thank you. I have a question about the kindergarten. Do we have space and resources and rooms for these, and how much will that cost us?
So that's a great question. I mean, it all begins on the assumptions of how many TK students will come. So we're going to work with our demographer, looking at our TK and seeing as a full year how many students that is. And then we are looking at our capacity at our schools. So that needs to get layered in there. And then we'll have to look at, based on that capacity and based on the growth, where can these students go? Now, some of our facilities do have space, others are tighter in space, and so we'll have to look at what model. Do we want to centralize? Do we want to continue the model of having TK at every school? So there's going to be, through this planning process that we go through and the data that comes back, there'll be a variety of choices and decisions we're going to have to make.
Steve.
The school meals, 2 per day, and that's K-12?
TK-12. TK.
TK-12, okay. And are we giving 2 to the TKs in kindergarten, although they're over there a short period of time, or?
Yes, we are working with our school sites and our CNS team to work on some of the details of that. But the students, when they come in the morning, they can pick up those meals and actually have them for recess. And then when the students are going to depart, they can then pick up their meals and go, because our kindergarten TK days are shorter. But we are going to ensure that those students have access to those 2 free meals.
Do you know what type meals they're serving, or what the menu is, or?
I can tell you. My daughter loved the cheeseburger yesterday.
What I know is that they are very nutritious and healthy because we have a dietitian who really ensures that. We follow the guidelines, but there's cheeseburgers and there's pizzas and there's chicken and there's all the good things and there's vegetarians and stuff. So there's all the good stuff that we should be having. The meals are complete. They need to have fruits and vegetables and grains, and they're weighed and they're really meet those guidelines. But most importantly, I've heard they taste good. So I think that I think is at the end of the day the most critical thing.
Well, the best news is we do not count ketchup as a vegetable, so I can tell you that. It is a little disconcerting. I don't object to the idea of providing free meals for students. It's really difficult to learn if you're not well fed. It's just challenging that they have not yet identified the funding for the third year out, although they've mandated that we'll be providing the meals. So a little concerned about that. Welcome back to the world of categoricals for those of us who've been around a little while. It's very disconcerting when you have pots of money that you're given for this certain thing, but you don't really quite need that in your district, and this district over here needs something different, and yet we all get the same pot of money for the categorical. So,
Julio, how are we doing with personnel to man all that? Because that could be 14,000 lunches.
So we are receiving a request for hire from CNS, so we are looking at a reorganization plan as well, making sure that we have enough staff to be able to deal with these needs.
Ms. Makashi, how's it going?
My children love the meals. My daughter was raving about the cheeseburger, and they're excited for the garlic pizza that will be coming once a week. So firsthand, I can tell you my children have taken advantage already of the free meals, and as a parent, cannot express the gratitude that this is being offered to our students, and so a huge benefit for the district. And thank you in advance, Ahmad, for all the hard work, and Julio in helping to make that happen. I do have one question. If you could just elaborate for the benefit of the public to understand a little bit more about the pocket of funds for the incentive grant for the Career Technical Education Incentive Grant that's earmarking $3 million. Could you just talk a little bit about what that might include in terms of services?
I don't know, Julio, do you want to take that one, or you might be a little bit more in the weeds of those block grants and stuff?
I'm going to pivot actually to Dr. Woodward, who's working with AMIS on that project.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Makashi. We are still looking forward to receiving additional details about this grant, and when we receive those, we'll be able to provide you with an update.
Definitely look forward to that because it's a lot of money. Just to add, already mentioned, just huge, great appreciation for the hard work putting the 45 revised budget together. I've talked to, some other colleagues and friends from other districts and states, and very impressive. They always take comment on how clear outlined the information is, and that's credit to your hard work, Ahmad, and your team. So I know this has been an unusual year. I think that was mainly just one of my key questions. Could you just re-clarify, I know I did ask this in the communication, but just in case for the benefit of the public, the decrease in benefits, just explain that a little bit.
Sure. So we had in our adopted budget, the state had asked us to put a 1.23% state unemployment insurance. That means that for our $80 million salary, 1.23% was going to the state unemployment insurance. That was a rate increase the state imposed upon us due to the pandemic. They decreased that rate through the enacted budget. The governor signed it, and so that decreased that amount by 0.73 to 0.5. And so those savings offset the benefit increases that were part of the salary increases for CSCA. So there was a net savings in that benefit cost.
Okay, thank you. That was all my questions.
I wanted to circle back just a little bit to child nutrition. So it's important for the community to understand that that we're going to be sending out communication about having families still fill out the applications, correct? Can you describe that process and why we'll be asking families to do that?
Great, thank you. Thank you, Joan. So we are still going to be asking our families to fill out our application for free and reduced meals. Those applications provide the school district additional funding for particular type of support staff and teachers and others that are a direct benefit to those families. And so those could be our family liaisons and English support staff that help with those areas. So with those applications, it gets counted towards our unduplicated students, which are our EL students, our homeless foster youth, and our free and reduced lunch. So those applications help the district bring in dollars. Those dollars directly support services towards our families, especially those families who need those additional services. Secondly, those applications, when completed, provide families with other additional benefits that they can apply in the both the state, federal, and local community. It could be reduced rates on your SAT test and other benefits like that. And so those are detailed out, and we'll be communicating both through flyers and other means for families to continue completing those applications.
Thank you. I think that was very clear. I think one of the best benefits that's new this year is actually reduced internet rates for families, and even a purchase of a discount on a device. So if you need like more information, please talk to our Child Nutrition Services folks. All right. With that,
I have a question.
Oh, Mark, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So, Ahmad, on the pre-K deal, so I think Trustee Carry-On asked about cost. Have we heard anything about what we might expect to receive in ADA revenue for pre-K students that we're not getting today?
That's a great question. And so, our kindergarten enrollment is about, somewhere in the 800 realm. I don't have the latest figures. Our TK typically is in the 175, 180, and that's just the for those 4 months. And so, if we expand that out, we might see a full TK grade somewhere in that 600 to 700 range. And so it will be a considerable amount of additional ADA towards the district, but then we have to hire additional teachers. And so the program does require 24 to 2 adults, and so that's a teacher and another adult. So we have to work through some of the cost issues, and so there will be revenues, but then there will be the staffing, and then obviously the facility issue is a pretty big one as well. And so those are all the details, and I think that's why the state is providing planning dollars to school districts. They realize that it's going to take a considerable amount of effort to implement this.
The good news, Mark, though, is that they are going to rebench Prop 98, so it's not providing additional services that they're not providing additional funds for. So that's good news. Any other questions? I didn't see a public comment on this item, so I'll seek a motion to approve.
I'll move approval of the 45-day interim budget.
I'll second.
45-day revised, sorry.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 45-day budget revision for 21-22 budget. Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Carry-On?
Aye.
McCaughey?
Aye.
Maher? Aye. And Larson, aye. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item B, which is report discussion possible action on the Horizon Early Education Center Infant Toddler Care Program. Who's leading us off on this one?
That'll be me, President Larson.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, and good evening, President Larson, Board of Trustees, Dr. Haglund, members of the Cabinet, community, and staff. So this item is a report discussion and possible action item, and it'll be co-presented by myself and Mr. Sheikh Kholaslami, who you just heard from. And so I will ask Mr. Gannon to please start the presentation. I'm not as good as Mr. Sheikh Al-Islami. I can't drive and do the presentation, so thank you, Mr. Gannon. Okay, so the presentation will consist of two main parts. One is the program piece, which I'll talk about, some background, and then Mr. Sheikh Al-Islami will talk about the financial picture of the program, and then we will have a recommendation to the board at the end regarding the fees. So I do want to start to talk a little bit about Horizon Early Education Center and its general mission. And we have some really good leaders up there. We have our early education staff, which is led by Cheryl Azelton, with the several early education aides in the program, as well as Tracy Peterson, who is the program administrator, along with the other childcare programs, STEAM and Kids Club. So we have a really good group of people running a nice program up in Horizon for our infants and our toddlers. The mission is stated there. I won't read it to you, but it's really about providing a safe and healthy environment for our kids right from the start. We're talking about students birth to age 3 that are in the program. And we do follow the program infant toddler care principles, and it's about meeting the needs of each individual student, where they're at, and getting them to a point where they're ready for preschool. Next slide, Patrick. Thank you. The goals of the program written here talks about socialization, appropriate play, developmental play, and really, again, as I mentioned, building that foundation for our students so that they have future success in once they get into preschool and elementary. So that's really the main goals of the program. Next slide, Patrick. Thank you. Just a little bit about the background. So this program has been in the Pleasanton School District, I say for over 20 years. I think it's been longer, but that's where kind of I started finding information. And it used to be called the School Age Mothers Program, SAM, and it was serving school-age mothers who had babies in our district and actually extended out into the Tri-Valley. It was funded originally by the California Department of Education through the CalSafe program, and again, been in existence, had different iterations, but the mission and the goal of the program have remained the same. Starting in 2017, 2018, we started seeing a lower enrollment, and there's many reasons for that. There's then obviously impacting the financial picture of the program, which led to discussions about possibly closing. In the spring of 2021, this board asked us to gather some information and provide it here, and so we can make a recommendation about the program. So that's why we're here tonight. Next slide, Patrick. Thank you. There's a lot of numbers on here. I'm sorry if it's small, but the idea is to give you a snapshot of the last 4 years of enrollment for the program. You can see there is a gradual increase in the monthly enrollment of our children, and this is the average monthly enrollment in FTE. Don't confuse it with FTE of staff. It's full-time equivalent of children, because we have some children who are part-time, and so we want to make sure we have full-time enrollees, but because some of our children are 3 days or 2 days a week, there's that number of 16.2, for example. You can see the average staffing. Right now, we have 7.0 staff posted. We do have one position that is vacant. When we have a vacancy, it does impact our enrollment. We need to maintain a certain ratio for both programs, both infant and toddler programs. And so the current ratio for infants is 4 to 1, so 4 children to 1 adult, and for toddlers, it's 6 children to 1 adult. Next, Patrick. Okay, so the current fee structure is stated here on this particular slide, and we did do some research with neighboring programs in the Tri-Valley, and what I could say about the current structure and related to the other programs, it was a little bit difficult because there's really no other comparison for school district run infant toddler programs. We could not find a school district run program, so a lot of the programs were private. So we do have the snapshot on the next page, but if I can just ground us in our current fee structure for Horizon, it's $1,920 per month full-time, it's $1,455 per month part-time, That's 3 days a week, and then for 2 days a week, it's $970. And then you can see our hours of operation pre-COVID and during COVID. We are back now to pre-COVID times. Okay, next slide. Again, a lot of numbers on here. There are 10 programs in the Tri-Valley that we researched, and you could see that not all of the programs have both infant and toddler programs. There are a few, and you could, again, take a look at the comparisons there. In summary, the monthly average for a full-time infant in all of these programs is about $2,400, and for a toddler, it's around $2,300 for a full-time monthly average. So you can see in comparison to what the current fees are for Horizon, we are below the market value, and we will talk a little bit more about what our recommendation here will be in a little bit. I'm going to turn it over to Ahmed to talk more about the financial picture. Mr. Shikosan.
Great, thank you very much. So we took a look at the program and really thought through that if we could increase participation in terms of the number of infants and toddlers and increase staffing, where would we get to in terms of our revenues and our expenditures? And we're pretty confident that if we can get to that 20 FTE in terms of full equivalent infants and toddlers and raise the rates, we can really reduce the negative or the lost revenue to a very minimal amount, to about $50,000. And depending on, circumstances here and there, it could even be a little bit better than that. But this is kind of a big picture, is we need to really increase enrollment, we need to get the fees up, and then that gap is going to be tightened down. So if you can go to the next slide, Patrick. Just some high-level information on the assumptions that this was built on is, so our salaries include, the cost to, in terms of the salaries that we pay, but we have a high burden rate of about 33%. And so that's what makes this a little bit challenging for us, is that we do pay, for both the FICA and our pension program is PERS. And the district also does contribute for full-time employees towards medical costs, and we cover single Kaiser. And then we also have a program where employees can have, if they are getting health care through an outside vendor, they can get the cash in lieu. And so those are part of that package of salary costs that we have to be looking at. In addition to that, depending on salary movements and changes in both our benefit costs, we could be looking at 4 to 6% increases on an annual basis on salaries, which is the main driver of our costs for this program. Next slide. So this is a snapshot. You can see the 18, 19, 19, 20, 2021. We've shared this previously. We also included the indirect costs, and I think we had not included that previously. Indirect costs are charges to the program to ensure that we are covering some of the minimum maintenance and some of the electricity and payroll, all the things that it requires to run a business. And so it's a percentage, and as the expenditures go up, that you'll see that increasing. So if we look at the revenues, the last couple years have been tough, especially with the pandemic. But as we come out of the pandemic and go back to somewhat of a more normal operation, those numbers are improving. However, they still are not improving to the amount we like. So on that estimated based on current enrollment, that is our current fee rate. And so we would run the program, this one particular program, within that Fund 63 at about $160,000 loss. If we increased the fees, that loss would be reduced to about $86,000. And then if we were able to increase the fees and go I shouldn't say it's full enrollment, but go to that 20, because I think full enrollment would be closer to 24. But if we could get to the 20, then the program would be around that about $47,000 of loss. And so there might be other ways to tighten that. Again, if we could increase participation and get additional students in there, that would be great, infants and toddlers. And also we could, I know that some of our parents have been looking at fundraising and donations, and so that also could help kind of tighten that gap. But we don't have any consistent data to kind of say we can rely on X number of dollars of donation a year. However, we are looking at this as a spectrum. We have the STEAM, we have Horizon, and we have Kids Club. If we go back to normal operations, we do expect that overall, if the losses in Horizon and STEAM are reduced, that the program overall would be back in a kind of a positive territory and not drawing on the general fund. We do have, you'll see later in the board, there is an item for interfund borrowing, and that is because we're not there yet in terms of, remember, we took the reserves on this program way down, and so we now need to kind of build that back up in the next months to come. So in that intermediate time, we have to make payroll. I don't know if it's in this board meeting or it's coming. So it may be on the 26th that we're going to bring that interfund borrowing. So I just want to let you know that in the short term, we're not there yet. But I believe, given what we see, with Kids Club, that we're going to get there with their enrollment coming back. So that is there another slide on the financials?
That's the last one on financials, yes. Okay, so based on the board's request, last time we talked about this item, we did meet with the staff, we met with the parents, and we also did surveys with both groups. And then the parents had the opportunity as well to present their information, a really good presentation from the parents. They did their research, gave us some great ideas actually in terms of the program and possible solvency. So with that said, next slide, Patrick. The parents came up with some general recommendation from the survey, increasing fees to the local market rates, having a multi-prong approach in terms of increasing enrollment, and then marketing and advertising both Horizon and STEAM programs. The staff, their recommendations, they talked about possibly investigating alternative facility options, maybe a bigger facility, getting licensed for more kids possibly in the program, increasing community outreach, and then also researching curriculum options, which they had some really good ideas of how we could better serve our kids in that program. Next slide, Patrick. Next. Thank you. This is the proposal for the fee increase, and as I mentioned earlier, the average fees for the infants and the toddlers were on that previous slide. And so our proposal is to increase fees for all age levels. Some of the programs differentiate between infants and toddlers. The difference between the average is really not that much. So we're thinking one flat rate for both age groups is what we're recommending, and that's $2,300 per month. We do prefer full-time enrollment. We're going to market it that way, that we're wanting full-time enrollment. And then if we have space available and we need to backfill some of those possible openings, then you see the rates here for 3 days is $1,600. A 2-day enrollee would be $1,100. The parents talked about an age-based pricing fees, and it's listed there below. So for the infants, it's $2,300, which is the same as our proposal, and then for the toddlers, it'd be $2,050 per month for that age group. So that is the proposed fee increase, and then next steps is to continue to monitor the program, see how it's doing programmatically and financially throughout the year, seek to continue to enroll children into the program, get the staff hired, look at ways to market and advertise the program, and then tonight we are recommending and seeking approval on the proposed fee increase. So we can take questions at this time.
Ed?
Yes, sir.
Ed, did you get an email from Horizon this week about what they've done recently with donations and so forth?
Yes, we did receive an email.
Was that included on part of your financial, or is that just?
I don't believe so. Maybe Ahmed can answer that too. I don't believe so.
I know
'cause
it's one time. I mean, it's not like it's every year. So.
Yeah, they did start a Horizon campaign fund, and so I know there's monies that have been captured through that fund. I don't believe it's hit our books yet. And
About $22,000.
Yeah, $22,000. And Ahmed?
Yeah, correct. So at the time we put that together, we were in communication. The parents wanted us to set up a kind of an account with a firm that does matching, so they can do matching donations from their corporations. And so I think last week we got word that potentially there's about $22,000 in that account. So those should get transferred to us, and then we can account for it. But again, it's building that kind of like, okay, is that just a one-time thing, or is it going to be an ongoing thing that we can count on parents providing, on average, X dollars of donation that could, that could be in the budget. But it's in the numbers that I shared with you, the $22,000 was not included.
Yeah. They also indicated they had 12 families on a wait list, which I thought was promising.
Yeah, the email provided some promising numbers, including, I think what we do is we look at month to month, and the enrollees, the staffing is really influenced by, the children being born, frankly. I mean, we have some potentially new infants that could participate. On the flip side, we have 3-year-olds that turn 3 and then they go into preschool programs. So it's a constant moving thing, but there is some news that is promising in terms of the people interested in enrolling.
Okay, well, thank you, Ed and Ahmed, for really delving into this and really listening to parents and having meetings and putting this all together. Certainly, I support it, and I support your actions of how you went through it. I think that's, at this time of year with all that's going on, you did all this too. I mean, so thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add my appreciation. I really appreciate the time that you guys took and that you listened, and you did a great job. So thank you both very much.
Well, I do have one question on the financials, on the financial picture slide. Talking about estimation, it only calculated 20 students. So if that number was adjusted roughly to the 24 students, I think was maximum capacity, was it 24 or 26? How much would it be less, right now it's negative 47,000, but how much less would that be if we got 4 more students added?
Sure.
Would it be significantly less, or about half?
So the reason we put the 20 in there is exactly the reason you just heard. Kids come in, kids go out. You have to look at that average. Even if we can get it up a little bit higher, in terms of for budget planning, we have to kind of like be a little bit more conservative, not too over aggressive. However, I mean, if you added, if we were able to sustain average of 24 students, so those 4 students, each of them, is $2,000 a month, so you do the math, it's 8,000 times, let's say they're there for 11 months. And so that it could close that gap, but it also would probably require some additional hourly staffing to help bridge some of those gaps and substitutes.
Okay, so I guess I'm thinking bigger picture. What about the thought that was presented by the parent group about making a stronger connection between Horizon and STEAM? Would that help with revenue and also increase with the revenue with STEAM that could help support in the entire Fund 63? Or I'm just curious. I know that it was presented by the parents, and thoughts on, is that a possibility or option to make that connection a little stronger?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way we look at it, as Ahmed said earlier, it is that continuum of services. So essentially, Fund 63, if we think about it, is students birth through age 12, up to fifth grade, because Kids Club serves TK5. So in terms of programming, how would that look? How can we market that way, advertise it? Those are the things we're thinking about now, definitely. Financially, Fund 63 is all within that same fund, as Ahmed said. If the individual programs can sustain themselves, that would be our goal. But if not, then one of the other programs, it'll be Kids Club, which generates a lot more revenue, would help this program. But yeah, we definitely are looking for ways to get the public to understand that there is this continuum of services here in Pleasanton.
Sure, definitely. And I know it was discussed in some of the community meetings about additional marketing and advertising, so I hope that'll be further explored. But just to expand on the other trustees' comments, a huge thank you for the hard work put together to have the dialogue with the parents and the community, and put this presentation together, and very comprehensive. And thank you, Ahmad, for the additional financials for some of the communique, just to see bigger picture from the financial perspective. So it sounds like with all the programs within Fund 63 should be hopefully self-sustaining. That's ultimately the goal down the road. So thank you very much.
I'm going to take a little bit different tact, though. So in the spring, when this came before us, I was not supportive of closing it the way we were moving. And I wanted it was just too fast and not enough notice for families. And I really do, again, appreciate the families' work on this. But I do have to say, I think that we as a district need to take a step back as we see how it goes in non-pandemic time, whether or not we're going to be able to sustain these programs, and that includes STEAM as well. So when I first got on this board, we had Horizon graduated probably 10 parenting teens every year, because that's how many students we were serving in educating and taking care of their children. And that's just not, thank goodness to teen pregnancy being down, that's just not, we're not needed, that need is not there anymore. And so when we initially started STEAM, one of the ideas was that we were going to be able to offer this, it was going to be a benefit to our employees. We didn't really see our employees take advantage of it. We didn't see an influx of children of our employees in the STEAM program. And so, when we take a look at this, and it's just hard to do it right now when just coming out of this year and a half of everyone staying at home and not utilizing the services. But is this really the business that this K-12 district needs to be in or wants to be in? Kids Club has a similar argument. In the past, there have been members of this board who wanted us to contract out with other vendors. We are a relatively unique district that we provide this program in an enterprise fund. Not very many districts, none others in the Alameda County that I'm aware of, do that. And it's not, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it is unique that we do that. And as long as these programs are self-sustaining, then that's not a problem. And that it's something that we want to continue to do and see as part of our mission. But if we are having to contribute out of general fund dollars to the programs to support them, then I think we need to really ask ourselves if this is the right business that we want to be in. So I'm supportive of the fee increase. I'm supportive of looking at it as we continue to do the marketing and what we want to, and hopefully it will, the program will grow and be self-sustaining. But I honestly think this is something, if it is a benefit to our employees, if it's something that we would be able to use as a recruitment tool, that we offer this infant care program. So we would get some classified members and some teachers who would look more favorably on our district because that we had this benefit that other districts didn't have. That would be a good thing, and it might be worth being a little bit in the red because it would be a recruitment tool, but we cannot run the program in the red for very long. So I don't want anybody to panic. I don't want to get 100 emails. I understand the passion. I understand the love. I know that the program is a great program. I just need people to understand that, when we're looking at, a financial picture over time, we can't just support the program from general fund dollars very long. So the idea of moving the facility is a possibility or is of interest, especially when we consider that we're talking about moving this whole district office complex and doing something different with that. So I think all of those things need to be looked at. And I'm willing to give it some time, or I'm personally, my vote is willing to give it some time, but I really think that has to be something that we need to keep in our mind and understand that it's not sustainable if it's losing money year over year. And is that the business that the school district wants to be engaged in? And it has to be to the benefit of all of our, all of our programs. We can't cannibalize another program to support this one. So at least that's my opinion. Mr. Miller, did you have any comments?
You just said it really, really well. I was going to say the exact same thing. This has to fit within PUSD's, mission, I guess you'd call it. And it has to. I really would like to see the original intents of benefiting the employees or being. I liked Trustee Makashi's point on, making sure that we have a clear path from at least through, Horizon to STEAM to school, so it fits with that. But we're not getting money that I know of we're not getting revenue from the state to do this. This is not really something, we're doing it right now because out of the goodness of our hearts, quite honestly. And as long as we can pay for it and whatnot, okay. But yeah, it requires some thought. I did have a question, Ahmad, and that is, so we have basically a proposal, or Ed, this is a proposal that is just $2,300 per child, regardless of age or anything. Was there any thought given to, do you have a discount for 2 children being in it type of thing, or employee of the district or anything like that was discussed?
Yeah, I'll start first, and then maybe Ahmed, you can piggyback on that. Yeah, we discussed many options and variables, Trustee Miller, but we kept landing on the flat rate. And we took a look at that, and we really needed to see how we can maintain a self-sustaining program, and those kind of partial fees would impact our inability to do so. So that's why we kept landing on that flat rate.
That's what you would say.
Yes, Mary Jo.
One thing that really did strike me, though, was some of the parents wrote letters about how, because they were in Horizon, they had early intervention that prevented them from special ed services later. So I think we need to look at the whole picture later. Whole picture of how that is serving the child from cradle to graduation. So just want to add that point.
All right, I know we have some public comment.
Wait, hold on. Do public comment, then I'll ask my question.
We'll come back. Mr. Gannon?
Yes, President Larson, we have 2 comments on this item. First, we will have Cheryl Azelton, and then Alexander No.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendents, and Pleasanton community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the behalf of Horizon Early Education. As many of you listening know, this program was brought to the board agenda in May of this year to eliminate all the staff positions at Horizon Early Education, which the Board of Trustees respectfully removed from the vote until further information was brought forward. This vote would have effectively closed a program that has been serving teen parents for 45 years and since 2018, PUSD employee families and the community as well. The reasoning behind was the lack of fiscal sustainability. Although many of the figures being used were based on the startup year becoming a fully licensed facility, which is 1 year of administrative support, and then the year of COVID-19, which had the program shut down for 3 months. Under the direction of PUSD and our Kids Club administration, Horizon reopened in June 2020 at the height of the pandemic to care for essential worker families, being under the very strict guidelines of Alameda County Public Health, CDC, and community licensing, requiring small groups and separate cohorts. I'm very happy to say we've remained open and have had 0 cases of COVID. The Horizon families and alumni have submitted an extremely detailed, clear path of self-sufficiency for Horizon. It has been put in place. Had it been put in place immediately, we would have resulted in self-sufficiency by this October. In addition, the families, alumni, and friends of Horizon have contributed to the Horizon campaign funds of an impressive $22,042, with several hundred still processing. We are incredibly grateful for the support of our parents, alumni, and friends of the Horizon Early Education. While we have been tasked to prove our ability to enroll enough families and keeping everyone healthy, I am pleased to report that Horizon's attendance has grown from just a handful of essential workers' children in the summer of 2020 to currently being very close to our desired capacity of 20 or full-time and 24 max. Even after transitioning 3 children to STEAM preschool, we currently have 17 children enrolled with 16.52 full-time equivalency and 1 open staff position. In September, we will have 21 enrolled, 11 infants, 10.02 full-time, and 10 toddlers. That leaves 13 children still on the wait list. Infant toddler programs enroll year-round, and the wait list continues to grow. With the raise of parent fees, this program can meet its goal of fiscally sustainability. While our administrator is still in search of qualified early education staff, we will meet the goals for enrollment and rely on the continued support of administration and HR so we can meet these numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have another speaker.
All right. Next, we'll have Alexander No.
Hey, I hope you can hear me. I just have 3 things I wanted to say. First, I believe after the last meeting, the superintendent's office said they would meet with the parents prior to the trustee meeting, and that didn't happen. I was just wondering if the superintendent's office could at least let us know when they plan on putting this on the trustees' agenda. The donation amount currently sits at $22,042. For my own accounting and fundraising efforts, I believe that amount should be $22,442. If the superintendent's office could give Cheryl a list of donors, that way I can correlate it with the donations that I believe should be there, that'd be great. And then I want to know what the superintendent's office plans on doing to bump up the enrollment from the 20 scheduled for September up to 22, which I believe is the solvency point. Y'all can have a minute back.
Thank you for the public comment. Trustee Makashi, you had another question.
It was really more on the discount option for district employees for using the STEAM program with their own children. Do we know offhand how many district employees use the STEAM program currently? And how we might be able to expand on that enrollment with employees?
Well, in this case, we're talking about Horizon tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I was, okay. Horizon. That'd be
yes, but Horizon,
potentially,
but yes, it would be, good information to have on the whole program at some point in a communication. Thank you. Any other further questions or comments? For the parent who's requesting some information, please contact the Business Services Department. Mr. Hamed Shikolaslami should be able to direct you to get the information you're seeking. Is there a motion on this agenda item?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve of the proposed fee increase for the Horizon Early Education Center Infant Toddler Care Program. Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Carrion?
Aye.
Makashi?
Aye.
Maher? Aye. Larson? Aye. Great, thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item C. Report discussion on the Pleasanton Unified School District complaint procedures, and I believe Mr. Hernandez is leading this one.
Thank you. Good evening, President Larson, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Hagelin, Executive Cabinet, Community, and staff. So the item is a report and discussion to present to the board. Thank you for the opportunity to present to the board and the community what our complaint procedures are. We will be assisted today with Senior Director Mike Williams, as well as Yuri Calderon, one of our district attorneys, will be helping make this presentation. In essence, they will be presenting the 3 forms and procedures that we have for the community and all employees to be able to file a complaint. One is a Williams complaint, the other is a uniform complaint, and the other is an employee complaint. They will be discussing the forms, what they're used for, what the processes are, as well as the timetables, and ultimately what is the final arbitrator of the decision. And some it rests with the school board, and others it may go all the way to Superior Court, and others may go all the way to the state of California. To assist us in explaining these procedures, Senior Director Mike Williams, if he could please start the presentation.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hernandez. President Larson, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Hagelin, Cabinet, and Community, thank you for the opportunity presenting tonight to discuss our complaint procedures for Pleasanton Unified School District. First, we always like to start off, Mr. Gannon, I think, is going to assist me with the presentation, with our organizational chart, as you can see, so we can recognize how our process works within the Human Resources Division. Moving on to the third slide, I want to focus on the 3 different processes that we have. First and foremost, what is a UCP, or Uniform Complaint Procedures complaint? And this is a written signed complaint alleging a violation of a federal or state law. So these complaints focus on discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And these complaints, when they come in, they are typically looked at as referring to our protected classes, which include race, gender, age discrimination, disabilities, which can be physical or mental, sexual orientation are just some that fall into this category. We also have, and I'm going to skip over the Williams complaint for just 1 second and move into the complaint against a district employee. This can be sometimes confused with the UCP. So a complaint against a district employee can be similar to some extent, as it could be filed against someone that works for Pleasanton Unified. But a complaint against a district employee addresses general concerns regarding conduct or performance. These concerns that rise or could arise or alleged to rise through this process are not concerns of discrimination, harassment, or intimidation or bullying. These are specific to just concerns as it relates to performance or conduct. As you can see, the Williams complaint is another complaint that we see on occasion. Typically, this is something that would arise, a complaint concerning instructional materials. So that means access to, I would like to say textbooks. I know most everything is virtual, but access to textbooks, facility safety concerns, sharp objects on a building not being addressed, or teacher assignments, someone within a class that's not appropriately supposed to be in the class, such as someone without a credential assigned to that program. So these are the 3 types of complaints we're discussing. The next slide, I'm going to go to kind of the steps and process of which the process goes. So starting with the uniform complaint. Typically, we start with the mediation opportunity, where we have the complainant and the person that's having a complaint to have a conversation to see if it can be resolved. We always like to try to resolve things at the lowest level if possible. Usually there's a way to find a way to solve a challenge. Sometimes it's a communication challenge that allows us to help find the common ground, if you will, but essentially solve the issue that's there. Then we have the different time periods that fall. When it's a uniform complaint, typically we have our Title IX coordinator lead the process, or a designee of sorts. And then as we continue through the appeal process, there are timelines that follow, 60-day timelines for responses, 15 days in receipt of a final response to file with the Department of Education, and then the appeals go on. with the uniform complaint process, the final appeal lies with Superior Court system. So it goes through the different agencies within Pleasanton Unified, or different groups within Pleasanton Unified have opportunity to review the complaint, but ultimately this lands with the Superior Court if it's not resolved, again, at the lowest possible level. The employee complaint, the complaint against a district employee, typically is led by the direct supervisor of the employee. The only times that sometimes doesn't work out is if there's a possible conflict of interest, or that direct supervisor could be someone that needs to be investigated as part of the process. On those occasions, it would be that direct supervisors, or sometimes someone from human resources, such as myself, would play a part in doing that investigation. Again, there's timelines that we follow, try to have a mediation opportunity and resolve everything at the lowest level. It then goes to the direct supervisor, as I mentioned, or a designee, depending on the circumstance, where the investigation takes place and a response is provided within 30 days of the complaint being filed. Appeals may continue to the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, which then would communicate ultimately to the Board of Trustees, who would have the final say for a complaint against a district employee. As far as a Williams Act complaint, on the next slide, this starts with the immediate supervisor. For example, if it was a school site related to textbooks, similar to the example I provided previously, that complaint goes to the principal of the school. The principal of the school then have 30 days to try to work out the issue. Typically, again, if it's something that can be resolved quickly, we do everything we can to resolve those issues. If that is not able to be resolved with a complaint within 40 days of the request, that response is required. And again, ultimately, as you go down the process for appeals, this particular process, the final appeal lies with the Superintendent of Public Instruction. Again, more often than not, we're able to resolve these issues at the lowest level. And as I said, sometimes it's a communication challenge, or sometimes we have to navigate the issue and resolve it working with the complainant and the person that is being complained against. I would like to pass on to one of the attorneys that we work with frequently, Mr. Yuri Calderon, who will be taking the next two slides.
Before we get to Mr. Calderon, if I could just make a little bit of some clarification. So with the employee complaint, when it is filed, it can turn into a UCP complaint, depending on the nature of the complaint. So sometimes the staff member or community member simply fills out the complaint, not necessarily knowing all three procedures. Those complaints come to me. I do review the complaints, make a determination if the complaint takes a serious enough allegation that it merits a UCP elevation, in which case I will notify the complainant that this is a UCP complaint, not necessarily just an employee complaint, in which case it starts two pathways. One is not only just a complaint against the employee, but there may also be a violation of law, which will also convert itself to a UCP. In the event that that does happen, there is a separation that takes place. Through the course of the investigation, HR makes a determination or a finding of resolution. If the person who's filing the complaint is not satisfied with the resolution that I give in the employee complaint, they could appeal to the school board, in which case the school board will then hear the case, as it were. They have the option of hearing the case in open session, or they have the option of hearing the case in closed session. That they are afforded that opportunity. The board can then decide to either hear the case or not hear the case. That's an option to the board. If they feel that the resolution that's presented from Human Resources is satisfactory, they could opt not to hear the case. In the case of the UCP, the board does get to have a hearing on that issue. If the ruling of the school board is not satisfactory, the complainant can then file a complaint with the Superior Court and then take legal action using that procedure. In the case of the Williams Act, they could actually appeal all the way to the State Department of Education if they feel that the resolution is not satisfactory there. I wanted to make a determination also that in HR, depending on the complaint and who the complaint is against, we may bring a law firm in, depending on who the complaint is against. And if there's a conflict of interest, or there may be other more serious issues that we need to create some separation. So we will make a determination and then hire a law firm to be able to conduct that investigation, again, to ensure that there's no bias or some partiality given in the complaint process. I just want to make some clarification on that it is not automatic as far as the employee complaint. It stays in that pathway. Depending on the nature of the complaint, a determination would be made. All of the complaints end up with what's called a letter of finding, and in that letter of finding is the investigation, the reasons why the conclusion was done. That letter of finding is given to both the complainant as well as the person that's being complained on, and then that starts the appeal process within the time frame. All right, hopefully that clarifies a little bit more of the complaint procedures. If not, I could take some questions after the presentation. Mr. Calderon, if you would please.
Good evening, members of the board, staff, superintendent. I've been asked to elaborate a little bit on the role of the board in these complaint process. And it's important to note that as a governing board and individual board members sitting as a governing board, part of your role in that process of resolving the complaints is providing an independent and unbiased decision-making body that sits in consideration of the information that's being presented and reaches a decision or conclusion about the information that's being presented in an unbiased manner. And so as a board, your role is to come together in a board meeting, a properly called board meeting, and hear the evidence, listen to the evidence that's being presented by both sides, and render a formal decision that is recorded in the official minutes of the board meeting. And it's important, though, as part of that all 5 board members, or those that are present constituting the quorum of the meeting, come to the meeting with essentially with the same amount of information, that you're not have not received a briefing from one side or the other, but rather that you're coming to that board meeting in an impartial manner as individual board members to sit and render a judgment. That's kind of it's important to note that because you as board members all come to these board meetings with your own background and life experiences, and as you sit as a board together, all 5 of you bring that background, and you're listening to the evidence and coming to a conclusion that's the majority of the board. What is problematic, and if we can move to the next slide, Mike, is if one individual participates in the process at a prior level, you are in essence bringing to the board meeting and that quorum of board members a bias or a situation that is not impartial. And you think about it as when we go to court and we argue cases as lawyers to judges, one of the rules of the court is that no one lawyer goes and meets individually with the judge. And the reason for that is that the judge has to be impartial. And so if the lawyers are going to meet with the judge, they have to meet together on both sides so that all the parties, so that there is a perception of fairness, that the judge is hearing the information for the first time from the lawyers and doesn't come to the table with predisposed by something that one lawyer gave in the case. And so you as a board are like the judge in a superior court case, and you sit and listen to the information from a neutral and unbiased or a lack of neutrality. The other issue that does arise if a board member participates in the process, if they meet with one of the parties or in some other way involves themselves in the process, is that interference could jeopardize the complaint process itself. And so somebody could claim bias. And And the problem that you have as individual board members is that when that does, and you heard this evening that sometimes these complaint procedures will end up at the California Department of Education, or they'll end up in Superior Court. Anything you do or say as a board member is not privileged. And so if you have said something to one of the parties outside of the board meeting, that could be used as evidence during the proceeding. And in addition to being somewhat embarrassing, that could also create some bias to the process itself. And it could jeopardize the ultimate decision that the judge or the California Department of Education is making in the matter. So it is important to maintain that neutrality and that lack of bias through the process. And so I mentioned that none of the statements you make as individual board members are privileged. That's an important factor to continue to consider as a board member, that those may be used against the district, or they may be used against the employee at some point down the line through the process. And so I don't know, I'm available to answer questions about your role as the board and that piece of neutrality that you bring to the table. And when you hear these complaints, uniform complaints or employee complaints, or any of the other processes that end up with the board making a decision.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. I just want to be clear that not all complaints elevate themselves to the board level. In HR, we tend to resolve those complaints at that level so they are not appealed to the board. So in that case, the board will not hear the case if there's not an appeal to the decision that's being rendered. It's only when there is an appeal of the decision that has been made in the administration does that case elevate itself to the appeal process. I get lots of complaints that never come to the board because we are able to resolve them with the circumstance, with both parties being okay. Sometimes that may lead to some other issues, discipline or other, if it's an employee, it may lead to some resolution. But I believe there's been very few complaints that have been elevated to the board level. That doesn't mean that we don't receive them. It's that we resolve them at the lowest level possible. Thank you, Mr. Calderon and Mr. Williams. Any questions?
I do have a question. Mr. Calderon, could you talk a little bit about the liability that a board member would have as part of a board when we're acting within our role versus if we go outside of our role? Is there personal liability that we could be subject to?
That's actually a very good question. So as a board member, when you act as a sitting board member at a regularly called meeting or within your role and responsibility as a board member, you are protected by a series of, I would say, call them like immunities. And you're also covered by the district's insurance policy in the event that somebody were to bring an action to try to impose liability. When you act as an individual board member outside of that role, outside of that capacity, you have no protection, and you essentially would, you may be able to get the insurance to cover some of the defense costs, but if there is a finding that you were acting outside of that role and responsibility, it's unlikely that you would have any protection or coverage by the district.
We're laughing not at you, Yuri, but Mark is making faces over there on Zoom. So, honestly, this is a great presentation. I've been serving on this board for 11 years, and this is the first time we've had a full, complete conversation about this. And I have to say that over the years, I have been part of an appeals process to the board. And I've also had many community members, friends who've, tried to talk to me about things. And my standard answer has been, you're my friend, and, somebody I respect, a colleague, whatever. But if you want me to be able to be impartial, in other words, to have the benefit of my being impartial and the possibility of my ruling in your favor, I can't talk to you about this. Because then I would have to remove myself, I would have to recuse myself, and you've lost what you're perceiving as an asset that would be on your side, whether or not that's true. But I would, if you share stuff with me, when I know that this is going to come before the board, I can't sit in judgment of the case because I would no longer be impartial. So I usually try to say it that way to people, like, if you want me to be able to vote on this, you just need to not share this with me. And, that's worked okay. It's not great, but it's worked okay.
That is a perfect response for that type of inquiry, is to essentially say, as part of this board, I sit as a decision maker, and it would be improper for me to receive information that I later have to make a decision on.
Mark, you have a question?
I think that, speaking for, I think all of us, is we want to help, that's one of the reasons we ran to be on the school board. And so our initial inclination in those situations is, how can we help? But we have to, that's why I really appreciate this presentation as well. And why I was grimacing at some points, because I'm like, man, we really do need to be very, very careful. So anyway, I appreciate that.
Are there questions? Yeah, Mary Jo.
Where does lawsuits and special ed complaints fall under? Which part of this? Or is it something totally different?
So Yuri, could you tackle that if you would please, and I could finish the question, answer the question.
I think the special ed complaints are no different. They're handled through your complaint process. And as you know, there is a very specific process that a school district must follow when it is considering an advocate or a student who is requesting specialized services. And that IEP process and the due process hearing is all a part of that. And the board does involve itself at some point in making some decisions about the direction or receiving information with respect to the litigation. And as you sit as a board member in closed session, receiving that information and making decisions, it's important that you are very careful about your potential participation at a different stage of that process, because that is not your role as a board member to be involved in an IEP or due process hearing until you are receiving that information as a board member, as part of a board meeting. And that's usually in closed session, represented by counsel.
So, so is the best process or the best practice to, we talk a lot about this, and we've been trying to do it for years, where we're redirecting people back into the system at the appropriate level for them to get their issue addressed, if you will. But it is really hard, like Mark said, we have constituents and we're representing families and we care, and but sometimes it's really hard to say, well, we need you to go back and talk to the principal, or we need you to go back and it's also been my experience that people don't want to file a formal complaint. They would really rather just talk to a board member, and they would really like it if we would just go and then complain to the superintendent and put pressure at various points in the system, and then they don't have to file a complaint because for whatever reason they're uncomfortable doing so, or they don't like the idea of being the one that says something. And that's hard too, because you're like, I need you to file a complaint. This is something that, having people do this sort of backdoor methodology is really not a healthy system, healthy thing. And so trying to encourage people, like, you need to file a complaint if you have a complaint, and let the process, work. It's been hard. It's been a challenge over the years, for sure.
And some of those are not necessarily complaints. They're simply a process, right? in particular the special ed, is a process, and it's a statutory process, and it doesn't get to be a formal complaint until fairly far into the process. And so when you do get those inquiries, it doesn't hurt to say, look, you really need to go speak to the superintendent or the director of special education and raise those concerns and issues and make sure they're being addressed by the district staff. Because you as a board member, and particularly as an individual board member, have no authority to fix any particular issue that a constituent is having. They do need to be fixed through the process. And special ed is fairly complicated and requires providing services on a variety of different levels and sophistication that has to be done by a team. And that's why you have the IEP team and the district special ed department that is focused on providing those services.
May I also add, there's another liability, and that's a liability from our own employees. Should a decision go against one of our employees, and that employee finds out that there was some information that was given to one of the board members that sat in judgment, there is nothing preventing that employee from then filing a lawsuit or complaint against the district. Because they have the rights as well to be represented and to be protected. So in HR, I think I made the comment to the board, the superintendent and I are the only ones that could actually suffer a real serious consequence for denying someone their civil rights. And we have to be really careful in human resources how we treat complaints and able to protect everybody's rights. At the end of the day, our goal is to resolve the problem. Some people feel that resolution may be a cash settlement, it may be firing the employee, it may be any number of remedies that they're seeking. Our job is to be impartial, to do a thorough investigation, to be able to come to a conclusion that's both sound and legally appropriate, to be able to resolve the matter. It's only when the complainant feels that that resolution was not satisfactory that there's an appeal process, ultimately resting with the board. But as HR professionals, we are trained to be able to ensure that we do not expose the school district or the school board or the superintendent or anybody else to legal action, to liability. So we are really careful in that, and we are careful in not sharing with the board, similar to what Attorney Calderon just said, information so that you have an impartial view of whatever that issue is. We may say that there's a problem, but we will not go into detail what those problems are. Because again, you need to be impartial when ultimately if that decision-making authority that you have is triggered by an appeal.
Are there other questions? Kelly?
I just had one clarifying question. It was really more of just for, the individuals that are filing the complaint, if they are not happy with what the resolution is, that's what triggers the appeal process? I just wanted to make sure I was understanding what was being discussed.
That is correct. So there is a process that we engaged in, as Senior Director Williams just explained. There's timelines, there's investigations, and then there is what's called the letter of finding. And that letter of finding is, here's what we did, here's our conclusion that we derived from the investigation, here is the resolution. If it comes to being an employee, there's rights that we have to protect the employee, so we will not state what a consequence is, because that's, again, protecting the employee's rights. But there is a resolution there. That complainant may then say, I'm not satisfied with the resolution that's given. Will then file within a timeline a appeal to the resolution. That then begins to trigger and elevate itself. If it's a UCP, it could elevate itself to Superior Court. If it's a complaint on an employee, it will elevate itself to the board. And if it's a Williams Act, it will elevate itself all the way to the California State Department of Education. The board has a step in those appeal process. It doesn't automatically just go to Superior Court or to the California State Department of Education, but the board is not the final arbitrator of the decision for those. only an employee against, a complaint against an employee, does it rest finally with the board. Again, that doesn't prevent a other staff member or other community member from filing a lawsuit, because they could sue, anybody could sue for any reason. But we are trying to do our best to ensure that the district is protected, as well as the board, as well as the superintendent, in all of these procedures. And it is legally plenty of minefields around. And we try to do our best to avoid those.
And just one extended question from what you were saying. So just in general, though, the appeal process, coming to the board, it is on occasion, but as you had stated earlier, a lot of the complaints are handled through the district internally, is what you were saying. Majority. I don't want to ask a percentage, but in general.
They are resolved. It's only when those issues are not satisfactory, or they feel they're not satisfactory, are they elevated to an appeal process.
Okay.
The number of those complaints, again, we are pretty successful in resolving those issues at the administrative level in the first investigation and findings of letter of findings, excuse me.
Thank you. Outstanding presentation. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Calderon and Mr. Williams. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Mr. Hernandez. That's it for that item. We'll now move on to item number D, which is report, discussion, and possible action to establish a board curriculum and instruction subcommittee. I think this is Dr. Woodward.
Good evening, President Larson, Superintendent Hagnon, trustees, cabinet, and Pleasanton community. Item 12D is a report, discussion, and possible action on items pertaining to the desire to establish a board curriculum and instruction subcommittee. And this is aligned to organizational goal 5. The purpose of the subcommittee is to discuss, gather input, and answer questions pertaining to key curriculum and instruction initiatives. The subcommittee will be scheduled to meet quarterly. A board subcommittee meeting will include 2 board members and staff, and will provide the board subcommittee members with an opportunity to give feedback or ask questions about key curricular and instructional initiatives before coming to the board for approval or implementing such initiatives. As we do with the board policy subcommittee, the budget and board facility subcommittee or other subcommittee meetings, board members will be added by a vote of the board in open session. These committees, such as the one we are bringing forward to you tonight, are subject to the Brown Act and therefore must be held in such a way as to allow for public participation. Members of the public may attend any of the board subcommittee meetings and ask questions or make comments using our routine processes. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have about why we are seeking to establish such a subcommittee.
Questions, comments?
Just one comment. Just thank you. Super excited that you're putting this together. What's the timeline for the new committee to go into effect?
The dates will be scheduled after this is approved this evening, if it is. And then we will begin, hopefully within the next month or 2, having our first subcommittee meeting, as we have some items that we would like to bring to you sooner rather than later.
So just sharing with the board, I'm absolutely passionate about curriculum.
I'm shocked to find out.
If you need a board member to attend, I'm volunteering, so at some point we can discuss that.
I'm shocked to find out that you're interested. I also would recommend that since we're so close, this is the, should the board vote to adopt this committee, since we're so close to the organization meeting, I know it sounds crazy to say that, but it's just right around the corner. I'm counting the meetings that I have left as president. I'm suggesting that perhaps this subcommittee, whoever serves, presuming that they want to continue, that they would just roll into the next year in serving in that role, rather than switching, because it's, there's going to be some ramp up and learnings that have to happen in the first several meetings, and you wouldn't really want to have to start that over in January. So Any questions from the other trustees? All right, I'll move item D to establish a board curriculum and instruction subcommittee.
I'll second it.
And trustee Miller?
Aye.
Aye.
Carry on. McCaughey?
Aye.
Maher? Aye. And Larson, aye. All right, and are you seeking us to name 2 board members this evening?
That would be outstanding.
All right, so I nominate Kelly McCaughey.
I'll second that nomination.
All right, so we have the nominations for Kelly McCaughey and Mary Jo Carrion to serve on the Board Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee. And there's been a second, I think that was a motion. I move that Kelly McCaughey and Mary Jo Carrion, and Mark seconded it, serve for potentially, continuing on into the new year should they desire to stay on. Mary Jo? Aye? Nay?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Joan is aye as well. My husband says, you keep switching back and forth between first names and last names. And I'm like, I know, as it gets later, I get tired. So that's exciting. You guys can look forward to the first meetings. As we move forward, I mean, this has been kind of a thing we've been talking about a little bit, transitioning the subcommittees into more of where the board members actually do the reports to the full board of the work that's happening in the committee. So I'm hoping that we really start doing that a little bit more this year as things have settled down just a little bit, hopefully. All right, item E, report discussion, possible action on 5th grade outdoor ed contract with Exploring New Horizons.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll turn this over to Director Galletti, Elementary Director Shay Galletti. Go ahead, Shay.
Good evening, President Larson, Dr. Haglin, community members, cabinet members, and Board of Trustees. I actually have the next 3 items. They do not have presentation slides with them, but I will be giving a brief overview of each of the items. Outdoor education is an exciting and very well anticipated trip for 5th grade students that provides students with the opportunity to develop environmental literacy and conservation skills in a cooperative environment. Curriculum used by the outdoor ed school and the instructors of the outdoor ed school concentrates on the next generation science standards. Exploring New Horizons provides outdoor education camp for 8 of our 9 elementary schools. Family and community members help supplement the trip's cost through donations. We ask that the Board of Trustees approve the contract with Exploring New Horizons this evening. Thank you.
All right.
And I'll open it up if there's any questions.
Do you have any questions? I do have a question. I'll go ahead. So it wasn't clear to me, even though I asked a question in advance, what the advantages, first of all, are of doing this as a district as opposed to the individual school sites making their own arrangements. So that's number 1. And then number 2, typically fundraising, not fundraising, but the request of fees, which we are legally eligible to ask for field trips, as long as we don't deny anyone the opportunity to participate due to lack of paying a fee. So there have been times when sites have struggled to collect sufficient dollars to fund the trip. Would the district be on the hook for paying for outdoor ed for a school site that does not collect enough in fees for the field trip?
I'll go ahead and answer the first question. The first question in terms of why combining the contracts, this actually was a request from the principals. It really streamlines the process, makes it more efficient and easy for both Exploring New Horizons and principals in their time management and workflow. In terms of the cost, yes, the district would have to pay. Oftentimes, though, PTAs, I know speaking from being a formal principal and we had trouble getting the monies, PTAs often also supplemented with the donations to help cover the cost.
That's concerning to me a little bit, just because I've been in those roles many times. And if the parents know the district is going to pick up the tab and their kids are going to get to go to outdoor ed one way or another, they're not going to pay the fee. So are we budgeting to cover outdoor ed in that case?
So I think in previous years, these agreements would be made, individually by the school sites, and all agreements made by the district. Ultimately, the district holds responsibility, and so I think that the past practice has been, to do these individually. But and then as Shay said, it did cause some confusion, and so I think the bringing it together in one contract made a lot of sense. Ultimately, the district is responsible, I think, and we would have to pay if the school site was short. However, I think there's other ways to work with the school site. They do have some site funds. There's other things that we'd probably look towards the school in closing that gap. And then if those other funds did not meet it, then the district would ultimately have to pay for those. And so we don't set aside that. We set aside it as the donations comes. We then expend those dollars.
Again, they're not donations, they're fees. I just really got to be clear about this. There's been so much confusion over the years, but Ed Code is really clear. Field trips are one of the things we're allowed to charge fees for. So we have in the past canceled field trips when there hasn't been sufficient collection. Are we prepared to cancel a school site's field trip for outdoor ed because they haven't collected enough in fees as a district? I just have to ask these questions because I don't want to be here in in March and,
Well, historically, we've never had to do that. I've done outdoor ed for 15 years at the elementary level. I was back some years, but we always had maybe heart-to-heart conversations with parents. Historically, we haven't had to do that I know of, and I remember having conversations in the 15 years that I had outdoor ed where I would talk to a parent and say that outdoor ed is coming. It's, in May, this is now October. Maybe you should donate along the way. And I, quite frankly, never had a problem. PTA always stepped in. Now, I don't know the last so many years if we've had problems, have we?
Trustee Maher, I can add a comment to that. So my oldest son did took part into this program 2 years ago, and we did pay a hefty contribution from the families. I know we even elicited, my husband volunteered to help be a driver and stayed. Amazing experience. That's one of the first experiences that since we've moved here, that my husband participated in a school-related event. Kudos to him. He's a science guy, not a teacher, not an educator. It's one of the greatest memories that my son has. Now, in contrast, my second son last year did not participate, which stemmed to my question in the communication on were we going to consider any options for those kids that missed out on it. So I would say, to your point, President Larson, I think we just need to communicate that we need support from the community, the parents, to help fund it and or through PTAs, and that it's not that the district's going to pay the tab. But I will tell you, coming back, rebounding with COVID, this is probably one of the best times to do this, and we just need to be really clear about the messaging. And I'm just sharing from my personal experience where I had one child benefit from it and one not. And during this time, those are my thoughts.
I believe PPIE pays for the transportation, is that correct?
Prior to COVID, yes,
prior.
PPIE did pay for the transportation.
Do you have that this year that you know of, or?
Yes, they still intend to pay for that transportation.
Because that's a huge cost.
It is. And I, again, want to be on record that I'm not opposed to outdoor ed at all. I just don't want to get stuck on the hook for $30,000 because the fees weren't collected. So I'm willing to vote for this for 1 year to see how it goes. And next year, if it doesn't work out, then we have to look at it again.
Well, and to your point, we do have to be willing to cancel programs if the fees don't support the programs. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear. All right, any other further questions on this item? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve this item for the outdoor education contract for $360,000.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the contract with Exploring New Horizons for fifth grade outdoor education. Trustee Miller?
Aye with your stipulation.
I think that's called conditional approval. Trustee Carry-On?
Aye.
Makashi?
Aye.
Maher? Larson? Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. Shay, please continue.
All right, thank you. The next item is report, discussion, and possible action on Greenfield Learning Incorporated. Greenfield Learning Incorporated is the company that provides Lexia Core 5 and Rosetta Stone English digital programs. Lexia Core 5 supports core literacy instruction for all students in kindergarten through second grade and is utilized as a supplemental intervention for students in grades 3rd through 5th. Rosetta Stone English is actually now termed Lexia English, as the company has bought out Rosetta Stone, is an adapted blended learning program that supports K-5 grade students who are emergent bilinguals in their English language acquisition. These applications track student progress and provide valuable information for students and teachers regarding areas of need and growth and how to supplement teacher instruction. We ask the Board of Trustees to approve the contract with Greenfield Learning Incorporated. I'll open it up to questions.
Any questions for this item?
I just have one question for the benefit of the public. Could you just describe how students are screened to use Lexia, for example?
Yes. So our history with Lexia is that we actually began using it at the onset of remote learning in the March area of the 2020. And at that time, it was for intervention, all K-5. As we used it throughout last year, we realized there was a great benefit for all students K through 2 to use it. So again, all students K through 2 will have access to this program, as it is really building on foundational literacy skills. By 3rd through 5th grade, we are capturing the students who are missing those foundational literacy skills, and that is why it's an intervention supplement. So students through our district literacy assessments, through MAP, who have been identified as having areas of difficulty with foundational reading skills and who are seeing the intervention specialists, or who are being provided intervention through the resource program or the SDC program, would be able to use this program.
So just another clarifying question, Shay. Are parents able to request that their children participate with Lexia in grades 3 through 5, where you notated it's primarily for intervention purposes, but if a parent would request, would that be an option, or is it strictly for intervention only?
It's for intervention, but it would be, and I don't want to use the IEP term, but really a team decision. When I talk about the team, we want to bring the teacher involved with the parent. Why is the request being made? What are the struggles the student is having? And how can we best meet that student's needs? And as a team with the teacher, the intervention specialist, sometimes the administration might be a part of that. If it's determined that Lexia is an appropriate supplemental program that would benefit the student, yes, they would have access to the program.
Great, thank you, and also thank you. Thank you, and also as a parent who has a child who's benefited from the Lexia program, I would definitely say there's a lot of benefits. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mary Jo?
Is there any training for teachers on this?
Last year, we offered actually several training through our staff development reform, which is SDR for after school voluntary training, and then on our mandatory professional development training on March 12th. of last year. We also had Lexia sessions. Now, as we are putting it out district-wide for all K-2, there will be additional sessions offered through SDR for those teachers who are either new to our district, want to brush up on skills, or possibly were not able to partake in last year's training.
All right, seeing no further questions, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve to approve the Greenfield Learning Incorporated contract.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Greenfield Learning contract. Trustee Miller?
Aye.
McCarrion?
Aye.
McCashy?
Aye.
Maher? Larson? Aye. All right, that passes unanimously. Item G, report discussion and possible action on Great Minds, which is Eureka Math contract. Director Galletti.
All right, Eureka Math is the board-adopted mathematics curriculum for grades kindergarten through 5th grade. In the 2020-21 school year, Pleasanton Unified transitioned from Office Depot to having the company Great Minds supply the print materials of the Eureka program. It's important to note that Great Minds has always supplied the Spanish print of the program for our DLI program at Valley View. In addition, Great Minds includes a digital component for teachers to access the curriculum online. Moving into the 21-22 school year, we will continue with the contract with Great Minds for the core math printing of the core math materials. We ask that the board ratify the contract tonight. Thank you.
All right, are there questions?
I'll open it up for questions.
Any questions on Eureka Math? All right, I'll seek a motion.
Wait, hold on. I do have some questions. So, I just wanted to confirm with the board that this is a ratification, and it's a pretty large amount for $246,000. So I just wanted to make sure that this was like an emergency situation for ratification versus being brought to the board for pre-approval.
Can you address Trustee McCashy's question?
So Eureka Math is a little bit different in the adoption process. In most adoptions, we do a multi-year adoption, and so the lump sum comes at the beginning, and then each year we get the materials or the consumables delivered. For a number of years at the onset of this adoption, our graphics department printed the paper, printed the materials. So it was board approved, but it wasn't a contract with an outside company. We moved away from Office Depot the graphics department to having Office Depot. Within that time frame that Office Depot printed, there were several complaints and founded complaints from teachers about the printing style. The use was not easy for students or for teachers. And also we had multiple delivery problems. We turned to Great Minds because we had a very good track record with our DLI program. And last year was the first year that Great Minds printed for the entire district. And it worked out very well. And feedback from teachers was that they liked the formatting of the printing and that the books overall looked professional. And for that decision, we decided to move forward. Next year, we will also have to come to the board since it's a yearly contract that we are making with the company. However, this will go on until a new adoption of math curriculum, and through that adoption process, whether we continue with Eureka Math or a different math company.
Okay.
The publisher, I should say.
Okay. So then I have a follow-up question. I did ask this in the communication, but when will we have an opportunity to the board kind of reflect on, the program, the fidelity of the program and how well it's going? If it's being brought up back to the board every year, $250,000 is a lot of money, so would love to hear a cap on, how it's working, how is it reaching all of our students, just overall fidelity of the program. So has that been done in the past with Eureka Math?
Well, the program is not changing. It's the same board-adopted program that went through the pilot process back in 2015 and 16. So it's not unlike, for example, the social studies program that I brought to you back at the end of spring, in which it's a multi-year, 6-year adoption. And so this is the same. The material is not the same. It's the printing. Because Eureka is an open source materials, it does not have a publisher behind it. Great Minds is the printer. That's why we also could have went through graphics, and that's why we went through Office Depot, because anybody can print the materials for Great Minds. If that helps clarify.
All right. I guess I'm going to ask this question to the board. I guess my bigger question is, at what time do we as a board have an opportunity to, review the fidelity of the programs? Is the program working? We're in prior to the adoption, prior to readopting. So if we have a curriculum program for 6 years, at what point does the board take a look at the program and say it's doing well, it's high marks, or well, maybe there might be some gaps for our English language learners, or we might need some supplement materials. It's this question that I'm asking to the board.
So when we've done an adoption, let's say you're adopting a particular curriculum, we're not going to, in 3 years in, come and say we're going to have a board workshop and talk about the fidelity and the use of that textbook. That's not been our practice. It's not been done. Staff would bring supplements. You may recall that we just adopted an additional ELD program based on the fact that the staff didn't feel that what was being used in Benchmark was adequate, and that was a adoption that was done a number of years ago. But the board itself is not saying, let's have a workshop on whether or not Benchmark is adequate. I think that going forward, the subcommittee that is going to be working on curriculum might have those conversations.
All right, we'll put that on the. So I guess my point is that in general, it's good practice, and it might be just looking at the policy, but in general, there's times that we need to look at the fidelity of the programs that we're purchasing. And it's a timely, when we're being proposed to approve additional funding, it's a good time to have a short presentation and say, this is the status of the implementation of a program. And I think your point about bringing it to the subcommittee might be a great idea. So, all right, that's all my comments. Thank you.
Shay, so I know that teachers in the past have not been happy with the exit tickets or the problem solving. They were all in one big workbook. How is it distributed this year? Do they have any choice, or are they just given as a package?
Great Minds has a set distribution of the materials as they print it. Although they're not the publisher of Eureka, the way they supply the materials is very similar to how like a McGraw-Hill or a different publisher would provide their social studies books or English. So for Great Minds, how they get it is they get what is called a Learn Book, which has their problem sets, their templates, and their exit tickets within a bound book. They then get a practice book, which is their sprints and fluency. For those of you who don't know what sprints and fluency, that's like the old time test, but we don't call them time tests anymore. And then they get a succeed book, which is additional problems for homework and also their homework helpers. And so they get 3 different books. And many teachers actually loved the way it was formatted. And going back to when graphics did it, we actually didn't have bound books. It was paper books that we created. So this actually looks much more professional as well.
It's been an evolution. I mean, we started off with our own graphics department doing the printing, and then, as Director Galletti mentioned, we felt the Office Depot could do it cheaper, but we weren't satisfied with the quality, and so now there's this option. But in no case has it been have we had an indication that we're not satisfied with the curriculum? It's just been the materials, the way in which we provide those materials to our staff that we haven't been, we're settling on something that's going to hopefully work out a little bit better. But it hasn't been, to my knowledge, a problem with the curriculum.
Absolutely, you're correct. Absolutely right. There hasn't been a problem with the curriculum.
I just meant, and I just want to be clear, my point was on fidelity of programs. So.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I think that's part of the reason why we're forming another subcommittee, is for those types of conversations to happen in conjunction with the staff, and as opposed to what we've had in the past, where at adoption time we've had sort of folks who weren't particularly happy with the adoption process, and then they come to the board meeting and we're hearing all different sides at the time. And so we're hoping that the work that the subcommittee is going to be doing with the staff and the teachers through pilot processes will produce a better process. I mean, at least that's my thinking on the idea. Any other questions? Trustee Miller, do you have anything?
I'll make a motion.
He's shaking his head.
I'll make a motion to recommend we ratify the contract with Great Minds.
All right. Is there a second? Second. All right. It's been moved and seconded to ratify the Eureka Math Great Minds contract, or I should say Great Minds contract of Eureka Math. Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Carry-on?
Aye.
Makashi?
Aye.
Maher? Aye. Larson? Aye. Thank you, Director Galetti. Now we're on to item number H. This is report, discussion, possible action on the site work package for the new science building at Hart Middle School. Good evening, Mr. Chwastik.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Haglund, Cabinet, and the community. I'll be short on this. It is the next exciting package that we're going to be issuing now, subject to the board approval, which is the second package of 4 packages for the Hart Middle School Science Building project. Package 1 is already nearly complete in construction. It's the back parking lot and new drop-off. And package 2 is for the site work of the new building, which is in the front of the campus. And it also, there's a package 3, which is upcoming, and that's going to be the modular buildings. And package 4 will be the upcoming renovations to the existing buildings, the existing science classrooms that'll convert into general classrooms. Package 2 was bid on July 15th of this year. There were 8 contractors that submitted bids. That's a good turnout. Integra Construction Services is who we're recommending to approve. They were the apparent low bidder, and their amount was $2,230,000. The high amount was $3.49 million. So that was a good turnout. Anticipated start of construction is the first week in September. That's once the back drop-off and parking lot is fully opened up for the drop-off and the additional existing parking that is being modified back there, which is going to be at the beginning of September. The project is trending on budget and is on schedule to occupy in the fall of 2022. The recommended action is for the board to approve the agreement with Integra Construction Services at Hart Middle School.
John, have we worked with this contractor before, or has Van Pelt?
I think Van Pelt has, but I have not personally. We did have a pre-screening meeting with them of several questions that they answered correctly, or they answered sufficiently. So that's confirming that they've been on site, looked at things, understand the bid documents. It makes it a little tighter that we can hold them to during construction.
Perfect. Any other questions from trustees? All right, seeing none, I will seek a motion. We're on item H. Trustee Carry-On. All right.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded by Steve Maher and Kelly Makashi to approve the site work package for the new science building at Hart Middle School, approve the contract between Pleasanton Unified and Integra Construction. Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Carry on.
Aye.
McCaughey.
Aye.
Maher.
Aye.
Larson. Aye. All right. Item number I. Possible action and discussion on the project inspector for that site work package at Hart Middle School Science Building.
Yes, this is just a continuation of that last agenda item. This is for the inspector of record, the IOR, for this package. And so what we try to do to make it a little more efficient is we packaged package 2 and package 3 for this inspector to bid on. That's where it's $110,000 and $110,000, $880. It just makes an economy of scale here. And so he's doing package 2 and 3. And the third package is for the building itself. But we're going to be bidding that in the near future, and that's going to be a modular type of project. So it doesn't take as much inspection on there, but this makes it a little easier on everybody. And so they were also, United Inspection Incorporated was the inspector of record for the first package, which is the back parking lot and drop off. They did a very good job. They're finishing on schedule. They've done a very quality project. And so we requested a quote from them in the amount of $110,880. So the administration recommends that the board approve the agreement for United Inspection Incorporated at Hart Middle School.
Do we have any questions or comments?
Just one comment. Thank you very much for the hard work on everything that you've been doing and all these projects and faithfully coming on each different project that you come every, to the board meetings, and just super excited to see the progress being done, and especially to, Hart and getting this science center in place. So thank you.
You're welcome. And we couldn't do it without the great team we have with Van Pelt Construction Services and everybody in our department.
John, just a quick question. Do you know when the total back parking lot could be operational for drop-off and pickup?
It is to be turned over prior to the capturing of the front parking lot, which is going to be the first week in September. That's the plan.
Okay.
Seems exciting that it's moving along so quickly. And just to remind the public, these are big dollars, these last two items, but these are from our bond fund. They're capital projects, not general fund dollars that we spend on regular things. These are dollars voters approved to spend on our building projects. So is there a motion to approve the inspector of record for the new science building at Hart Middle School?
Yes, I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract for the Inspector of Record Services between Pleasanton Unified and United Inspection. Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Carry on.
Aye.
Kashi.
Aye.
Maher.
Aye.
Larson. Aye. Thank you.
And John, thank you for helping with foothill traffic today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was a lot. Are you a board member? Okay, well, I do have a couple things myself. So, all right, so first I will ask the board members if they have any reports and or requests.
I have a few reports.
Please go ahead.
So my first report I want to say is that I went to the Alameda County Health Department meeting today. They have one every Thursday, and there's two things that I wanted to highlight. Number one, there is no guidance yet for band, and they don't even know when it's going to be ready. And then the vaccination rate is, for the ages 12 to 17, is 88%, which is pretty good. So keep getting vaccinated. And then we went to a city liaison meeting, and you want to add anything about the meeting?
Well, it was a very short meeting. Only 3 items, I believe, report about COVID. A very short meeting. One item was about COVID response from the district and the city. The SRO MOU was not brought up. Will be coming up at the next meeting. And then it's a joint meeting coming up. And the date, I can't recall right now off the top of my head. The 30th of September, joint meeting.
It's on my calendar. Anyone else? So I had one item that I wanted to bring forward, but it's sort of moot now, and that was mandatory vaccines for employees. But since the state has made that clear for all of us, I can cross that off my list. I would like to propose at the next board meeting or a little bit of a conversation about the board joining we've received some information from the Asian Pacific Islander School Board Members Association about joining them, and it's $100 for the whole board, and so I'd like to bring that back and see whether or not the board would be interested in that. And that is all that I had. Superintendent Hagland.
Thank you for allowing me to speak at the end of the board meeting as well. I neglected to say a few things in my report, and I want to make sure that I get them out. First of all, when we were announcing our new employees, some of them, all of them that you were announcing that were ratified, were already working. And several of them were working at open house tonight, and that's why they couldn't be on the call. So I just wanted to acknowledge that they were taking care of our kids and our teachers and doing exactly what I would want them to do, prioritize the kids and the staff. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I just wanted to say thank you to the Foothill staff, the Leidixon staff in particular, and our facilities team and all the other members of the extended cabinet of the district who really worked hard to support the arrival of students at those school sites, because they were very different. You know, when you went to Leidixon 2 years ago, it looked a lot different than it does now, including a different way to get to the campus. And so that was just a ton of work, and I appreciate the parents' patience as they work through the traffic on Foothill Boulevard. I think today it went much better than our first day, and like I said, we will keep correcting and improving that process. So thank you to the facilities team in particular, who were out there in big numbers today, really thinking through a lot of different strategies about how to make that a better process. And so it's like watching ants. You know, somebody draws a line through the ants, everybody scatters and tries to find the path back. And we've got a really great team, and I appreciate each and every one of you and parents for being patient with us. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Hagland. Our next regular board meeting will be on Thursday, August 26th. We will be adjourning the open session, but we do need to return to closed session for just a little bit, but there will be nothing to report out of that closed session. Thank you, and good night.